Okay, let's talk about some common mistakes with the long step pass. Are you guys still thinking about air fried steak? I need one right now. I need a steak.
What's the most efficient path to victory against this particular opponent?
He's dropping off for the choke here. We could see the finish. It's looking tight. Tainan Dalpra.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast. I'm your host, Matt Kwan. The Everyday Jiu Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu Jitsu. Today, we are going to discuss one of my favorite guard passes in the sport, the long step pass. We're going to talk about the mechanics of the move, common mistakes, entries, and also how this move blends into other aspects, other guard passes in Jiu Jitsu. Before we do that, please like, share, subscribe, leave comments, leave reviews. Check out my online academy. The links are in the bottom if you want to support the show. Thanks so much for joining me. Okay, before we talk about the long step pass, just a completely unrelated topic that I wanted to discuss. We're going to break into my culinary background here and just discuss a little bit about air fryers. By nowadays, most people, I think, use an air fryer. Air fryers are awesome. I just got one. As you guys know, I'm a chef. And I just got an air fryer not too long ago. And one thing I did was I threw a steak in the air fryer. And I just wanted to discuss why the air fryer is so awesome. Now, I know, if you're just here for the long step pass, just skip ahead 5 minutes. But one thing I love about the air fryer is that it's just like so convenient. It's so clean. It uses less energy. You don't have to heat up a giant oven. And if you're just cooking for yourself or just you and a small family, it's a really easy way to get proteins done. But I thought, okay, I'm going to try throwing a steak in the air fryer. And I get these really high quality grass-fed ribeyes. And man, I was shocked at how good it turned out. I think throwing in such like an expensive cut of meat is, some would consider it sacrilegious to do that. But I mean, who gives a shit? I mean, people are cooking steaks and tenderloins in plastic bags and searing them after. So if you guys know me, I'm not a big fan of sous vide, which is where you cook things in plastic bags at low temperatures to reach a certain internal temperature. And then basically you just like finish it in some butter or some oil and sear it. I think it's one of the things that I hate about cooking, honestly. I think sous vide is good for some things, but when it comes to like cooking a steak, nothing beats an open flame, or grilling was my favorite method. Searing in a cast iron pan, finishing with butter and herbs and garlic or whatever you're going to do. I mean, it doesn't really get much better than that, but I thought I'm going to try putting this really expensive cut of beef, grass-fed ribeye, which in the store, the steak is probably $30, right? Or $40 even Canadian. I'm going to throw it in the air fryer and see what happens. And I was shocked at how good it turned out. Obviously, it's super convenient to do this, but one thing I love is you're not searing anything, so your house isn't stinking up. There's no oil splattering everywhere. Everything is contained within this basket, as they call it. This basket is basically the vessel that all the food goes into. So it's like the tray. You just pop it in and, turn it once. And man, it was so awesome. I'm a huge fan of the air fryer. I also find that the air fryer is kind of a different way to cook things because, man, like it sears it kind of. And it obviously with some foods, it mimics deep frying. Like it can make foods crispy and things like that. But I just found that the steak was like, it was seared in such a way that it almost it resembled like it was deep fried. It wasn't like it was seared in a pan, but it was like it was deep fried. And all the fat, like the ribeye is a very marbled cut of meat. So all the fat has rendered in such a way that's like incredibly delicious. And it really renders the fat in such a way that it's just so palatable. I was really impressed with how caramelized this piece of meat got. And for those who know what caramelization means, it's basically the scientific term. I'll get nerdy for a second. It's called a Maillard reaction. Yes, Mallard like a duck. It was named after a dude who sort of discovered this reaction where amino acids and sugars basically cooked down and became brown. And this is what adds a lot of flavor to our seared and roasted meats. So whenever you see caramelization, whenever you see meats getting darker, this is known as a Maillard reaction. And this is not a term that's commonly used in the culinary industry. This is a scientific term. I only know about it because somebody said it during a stand-up meeting once when I was working at the hotel. I was like, mallard reaction, like the duck? Yes, like the duck. But when you use an air fryer, this mallard reaction is quite impressive. Like it really does crisp the outside of the meat in such a way that resembles like a really nice sear. And then the inside is super juicy and medium rare. It was just like so good. So I'm a huge fan of air frying these steaks now. And it's just so easy. I don't have to sear it in a pan or mess with it or get oil splattering on me. It really is awesome. And let me know in the comments if you think that that's sacrilegious. I think if it's good, use it, right? Another thing I love about using the air fryer is in the bottom of the tray, or the basket as they call it, there is this fond, as we call it in the culinary industry. A fond is like when you sear meat, the bits that are on the bottom of the pan. And so this is basically like concentrated meat juices, right? And this is more Maillard reaction. It's more the cooking down of sugars and amino acids that have now become this concentrated, delicious bits of meat that you can basically add a stock or a liquid to, and it becomes a sauce. You can pour the fat off and keep it for later. Like, it is just super concentrated. And one thing I love about cooking this way is that your fat and fond is not sullied by another cooking medium like oil or olive oil or butter that you usually need to use to sear something in a pan. So you're not adding extra fat. You can literally just throw it in dry and it comes out crispy on the outside, beautifully seared, and on the inside it is juicy. So man, I know you came for the long step pass, but I just had to get that off my chest because as a chef, I really appreciate how not only is it convenient, not only does it make a great product, it's clean, it's easy, but it's actually like a cooking method all its own. Like I don't really know how I would achieve that kind of a finished product using a traditional sear, or you can't. Grilling is completely different. Like it's something all its own. So I can't believe I've been sleeping on the air fryer for this long, but it really is impressive. And like I said, it kind of resembles like a deep fried texture, almost really crispy on the outside and nice and juicy on the inside. But it just somehow gets that beautiful crust and it's juicy on the inside, and you get all these awesome bits at the bottom of your tray to use however you want. It really is something special. Love the air fryer. Okay, enough of the food stuff, guys. I'm getting hungry here. Let's talk about the long step pass. This is the real reason why you guys probably listen to this episode. So I remember studying the long step pass maybe 1 or 2 years ago, and it was a pass that I was really interested by watching Tainan Dalpra, who's, probably the top middleweight grappler in the gi in the world. We all know who Tainan is. If you listen to the show, you're a nerd like me, you're autistic about Jiu Jitsu, you know who Tainan is. And man, Tainan is amazing, right? He's probably my favorite gi grappler currently right now. He's just so awesome. And he's known for this long step pass. You use it at the highest level, use it against all the best guys. And man, when I started watching him do this move, I'm like, I got to learn how he's doing that pass, because obviously I've tried to do that pass, but I've had very little success using that pass. And one thing I've noticed is when I now teach this pass to people, they all make the same mistakes that I made before I studied and watched his instructional. So my learning resources for today's episode on the long step pass are going to be the long step masterclass from Tainan Dalpra, and also the Understanding the Distance on Top by Guy Mendez. He does touch on the long step pass, but it's not an in-depth look at that particular guard pass. So man, the long step pass masterclass by Tainan Dalpra is one of my favorite instructionals, period. It is really, really good, really comprehensive. It includes drills and like the study of the move, like how it has changed over the years. We're going to talk about a brief history of the long step pass in a moment here, but definitely check out the long step masterclass from Tainan Dalpra. I guarantee you will see positive benefits from that instructional. And that is not instructional. That is available on Bilibili, unfortunately. So you'll have to either buy it or you'll have to find a way to pirate that DVD. Okay. What is the long step pass? Essentially, a long step pass is it's a pass that we're going to do where we make some kind of connection to our partner's upper body. The shoulders, usually the collar. I prefer the collar over, let's say, the crossface, although sometimes the crossface is used. But the collar grip from the split squat position. So we're splitting the legs, getting the split squat position, and we're basically falling away from our partner in like a crescent shape. And once we fall, we land away from our partner's guard. Ideally, we've broken connection of the legs, and then we're coming up and finishing the pass in some way. And we're going to talk about pass finishes. So it's like a it's like you're falling from the outside around your partner, and your head is on their chest, and you're basically, your head is down and your hips are up, and you're finishing a very, very dominant, effective pass. And I will say, if somebody long steps on you in the gi, it is a horrible feeling. You instantly feel like you have, first of all, you're only on the defensive cycle, and very, very likely that you're going to get your guard passed. If somebody is very good at the long step pass, they come out of nowhere. They are sudden, really, really quick and aggressive passes that are difficult to deal with. It is one of my favorite passes for sure. And so this pass, if you watch this instructional from Tainan, he's watching a couple of different matches with Guy Mendez, and they're giving commentary on it. It's really cool instructional. One of the studies that they're going over is a gentleman by the name of Fernando Terere Augusta da Silva, just known as Terere. And Terere is this like little Brazilian guy who is basically like, a lot of people consider him the godfather of modern Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So like a lot of the stuff that you see the Mendez brothers using, Andre Galvao, a lot of the stuff that these guys use nowadays was taken from Fernando Terere back in the day when, you know, Jiu-Jitsu was like close guard and half guard and guys are passing on their knees, right? And like we didn't even know there was a lot of like X guard or lasso or all this stuff. That stuff wasn't even really dominant back then. But this guy was really, really an awesome competitor, world champion. He's trained some legends in the sport, like guys like Cobrinha and Andre Galvao. He's trained with them and trained them. And so Fernando Terere is like a legend in jiu-jitsu, and often I would say kind of underappreciated in terms of, you know, the legends that you think about when you think guys like Hodger and Marcelo, and obviously the Mendez bros. Like Terere is up there in terms of what he has done for the sport and how his style, that modern style in the previous years, sort of influenced our sport. And so they're watching him do this long step pass, but he's kind of doing it in a way that is, I don't mean to sound disrespectful, but like not as refined as the way that the Mendez brothers are doing it nowadays. And so what he's doing is, I would say, what most people would consider a back step pass. And so a back step pass is very similar to a long step pass, but there's certain flaws with it that make it less effective than the long step pass, in my opinion. For example, a back step pass is basically looks the same in terms of grips and movement. Like you're passing around the outside, but you're kind of flopping and your foot is like smacking onto the mat. Right? And you're a big back step. And then usually when you do this, you're like on top of your partner and your head is up. And so what happens is you get to this seemingly awesome passing position once you hit the back step. But the problem is, because your head's up, a lot of the time what your partner is going to be able to do is they're going to be able to frame on your face, and it's going to make it kind of difficult to finish from there. So you can get kind of like 90% of the way to a pass, but then you just can't seem to finish it. And they talk about this issue in the instructional, and it's really cool to see the evolution of the back step and how they took that and they refined it and they developed this long step movement out of this pass and made it way more effective. And now when you look at the long step pass, they've really thought about like the common mistakes, the common problems that come up with the back step, and they've adjusted it so that now it's a lot more effective. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. So before we do that, let's talk about like the gripping. What kind of a grip do we want with our long step pass? Generally, we're going to set up from a split squat position. So sometimes you can do this move when you have like a De La Hiva and you stuff the leg in between your legs. You're in like a headquarters position. There are times when, like, one of my favorite entries would be like a leg drag or a toreando. And then after your partner is squaring up and facing their hips towards you, you can immediately blend this in with a long step pass. So it blends really nicely with other blitz passing attempts like leg drags and toreandos. Throwing the legs to the side, legs face you, boom, go into a long step pass. This is one of my favorite times to use a long step pass. But for grips, we're trying to look to grip our partner's collar, or sometimes we can grab their shoulder, like the gi on the outside of the shoulder. If my partner is doing a good job of preventing me from grabbing the collar, I'll grab the shoulder. These guys, Guy and Tainan, they talk about how the collar is basically where they made their career off of that one grip, is grabbing the same side collar grip as they're passing to the outside. not a cross collar, but the same side grip. And it's super effective because you have direct control of your partner's head and upper body. If you grab their shoulder, you have less, there's pros and cons to it. Like I have a little bit less control over their head, but now they can't build up to an elbow and wrestle up if they know that they're getting passed. If you go into a crossface, obviously that's really great control of the head, but the disadvantage is that you don't have the grip to pull yourself in as you're falling. And so it can be, I find, a little bit difficult to hit that crossface. You kind of have to just send it, and try and go for it. But I prefer that collar grip because with the collar grip, you can pull yourself in. Even if your partner's got frames on you and you're driving your pressure into them, you can use the collar to just be heavy and pull yourself into them. So for me, my favorite grip from there is the collar grip. And we don't, just like when we're doing judo, we don't want to have a low collar grip. We want to have a collar grip that's high, sort of above the, it doesn't have to be behind the neck or anything like that, but like in line with the collarbone. And so we want some kind of a control over our partner's upper body. For me, I always prefer the same side collar grip. Now, what is our other hand going to do? Generally, our other hand, the way that the Mendez Bros show it is just C gripping the shin. And you can do things like grab the pants. In competition, quite often you see like Tainan and Cole Abate, these guys are doing the long step pass when they're grabbing the pants. You can grab the top leg. You can do a weave where you grab the bottom leg. This is probably one of the strongest grips we can take, is controlling the bottom leg, but we want some kind of control over the legs. And like I said, when I hit it live, most of the time I just C grip the ankle. Big fan of C gripping the ankle. They even show methods where our partner has a lasso on us and you can long step right through the lasso by just like pulling your elbow and posturing. And then you can, even if you long step with the lasso doesn't really stop the pass. So it's great to do the long step versus a variety of open guards. And that's one of the reasons why I love it, is because you can hit it from a variety of different pass setups, and it works well for a variety of different open guards like De La Hiva, reverse De La Hiva, lasso, etc. Okay, so yeah, gripping one of the legs, usually I C grip and then a collar grip. So what the grip on the collar does is it allows you to pull yourself in and anchor yourself in that split squat when you're ready to go. When you do hit that long step, you're going to now initiate, as you're falling, a pulling action that allows you to pull yourself into your partner. All right. The grip on the leg checks the top leg. And then as you go to long step, your grip on the top leg, if you don't have the bottom leg controlled, is going to migrate to the bottom knee. What this does is it pushes the bottom knee away. So imagine you're on top in the split squat, you long step. Now when you land on your butt, you're going to take your grip off the top leg and frame the bottom knee. And this prevents the bottom player from making a knee elbow connection. Your head position, when you're landing, ideally we want to land with our ear on our partner's belly. And we're kind of like looking at their feet. So we're not landing dead on our forehead, on our partner's chest, but we're landing on our ear. We're looking at our partner's feet. And what our head position does in the long step, with our head low, doing the long step, we finish with our head low and our hips up. This prevents our partner from high legging and getting the top leg inside, which is one of the biggest things that's going to happen if you do a back step. If you back step, a lot of the time when your foot smacks onto the floor, your head is going to be up in the air. And that's going to allow your partner to push your face away and throw their leg over the top. And then that's where they usually make a recovery out of that. And so the long step is done in such a way that as you fall, your head sort of descends and lands on the chest, and that prevents the top leg from coming in. So just by the head position, we're negating the use of the high leg reaction. All right. Let's talk about the different phases of the long step. So there's usually some sort of a setup. We have to somehow get into the split squat position. So whether it's De La Hiva, headquarters, whatever, lasso, whatever context we're in, maybe we use a Toreando or, like I said, a leg drag to blitz our partner, and then they're recovering. Off of that recovery, we're going into our long step position. And once we get there, now we have to make that crucial movement, that long step movement, where we shoot our hips. We'll talk about the mechanics of the fall of the long step in a moment, but we have to do the actual long step action to get to the position where we're going to be looking to finish the pass. And then once we get there, the last phase of finishing the pass begins. So there's a variety of different there's a variety of different reactions that can happen, right? Like sometimes your partner will frame on you once you get to this long step position. If they do that, you can often just tripod. And this tripod is kind of like the basic way to finish the long step pass, where your hips are up and your head is down and you're basically just walking your partner down into side control. There will also be times where your leg gets stuck, right? Where you can't free your leg because they're trapping the end of your foot. And then as they're framing, you can punch underhooks and move into knee cuts and half guard passing. That's very common. Another thing that's very, very common is your partner will realize that they're getting long stepped and they'll try to wrestle up. So they'll try and just get up. And when that happens, what Tainan does really effectively is he basically just stands up quicker than the other guy and he does like a deadlift and pulls the collar up. And so what this does, if you can imagine having your collar hoisted up off the ground, like you're basically turning to the side and then you have a choice. Like if you're framing on your partner, you're giving him a free armbar. If you stay there, you're getting passed. And if you turtle, you're giving your back. And a lot of his opponents just instinctually give their back. And then that's when he takes their back and chokes them out. So that's also a very, very common reaction. There's many different things. Sometimes what I'll do when I long step is I'll try and bring their knees in and I'll convert it to a folder pass position where I'm smashing the legs to the side. And then I move into my tight half guard passing. So sometimes you can pass the guard outright. Sometimes we can go into chest to chest half guard passing, but again, it's all offensive cycle, which is what I love. Like I basically have never seen somebody who's on the receiving end of a long step pass be able to mount any kind of offense off of it. There's no like attacks or submissions that are really done from there. You basically have to frame and just try and recover and get back to a neutral position so that you can work your guard again, right? And so, you got to have an entry of some kind. You have to actually do the long step movement, and then you have to have the finishing sequence to the long step. So let's talk about like mechanics and also like how can we train this pass to become more effective. Guy and Tainan both discussed the value of solo drills. I've had talks on this show specifically about long step passing with like Greg Souders. I know he's not a fan of solo drilling and whatever. Listen, if I punch a punching bag over and over again, I'm not getting good at the skill of punching while not getting punched. That's true. But I could very well be sharpening the mechanics of my jab. I could be working on power. I could be working on my movement if I'm moving my feet, which I should be. And, to say that like that's not valuable for a striker, I'm pretty sure every boxer in the world is going to any high level boxer is going to disagree with that. Of course, it's not going to help you not get hit against somebody who's trying to hit you. That's true. But you can work on the mechanics of your movement. Like when I fire a jab, I want to make sure that I'm doing it without even thinking, and that mechanics are on point every time. And, like I'm taking that step, I'm bringing my shoulder to my ear, tucking my chin, I'm extending, I'm turning my hand over. Like I'm not a striker. I'm sure you guys could give me lots of criticism on my striking, but every time I do that, like I need to rehearse that movement so that when it's time to go in a live situation, it just sort of like pops. It's just there, boom, it's done. And I don't need to think about it. It's instantaneous. I get my jab. It's kind of like a distance management movement, and that needs to be practiced. And so that's why you'll see boxers like working on their jab or whatever, right? And so I think when I look at a pass like the long step, that is a sudden, quick movement that is kind of all done at once. That movement needs to be rehearsed. And so that's why I see the value of the solo drills. And from my own personal experience practicing the solo drills, there is a solo drill portion on the long step masterclass where he talks about these solo drills that helped him with the long step. Tainan says the solo drills helped him a lot. Guy says that helps him a lot. Talked about students where it's helped them a lot. And I can anecdotally corroborate that I've had the same experience with myself and my students. When I show them the long step, they all make the same mistakes. Everybody long steps on top of the other person rather than making space. We're going to talk about that in a moment. And then when you show them the solo movements, they really start to understand where their body should be moving and how their body should be falling and becoming more comfortable with that falling movement. Because it is kind of an awkward movement at first. But man, the solo movements are really, really helpful in my opinion. And then obviously, once you do the solo movements and you figure out the mechanics of the actual move and the path that your body needs to take to hit the long step pass, now you have to add a partner and gradually increase levels of resistance. And of course, if you have somebody who's like got a really good guard and you're not very good at the long step pass and you're trying to use the long step pass against them and they're fully resisting, like you're probably not going to have a lot of success. But if you have somebody who is framing and just being like defensively responsible, but they're not shutting you down, and you're able to use that long step pass, you can feel the movement against somebody who would be normally reacting with frames and like I said, being defensively responsible, and then you can increase the resistance. So a lot of the time when we drill the long step pass, that's what I do. We do rounds where it'll be like 1 or 2 minutes at a time. Person's trying to get a lot of good long step passing. We can also increase speed. So we can try and encourage the athlete to get more speed and more reps once the mechanics are good. But at first, we should be focusing on the mechanics of the move, and then we increase speed and we increase resistance. And so person on top maybe hits a Toriando, and then they hit a long step. And as soon as they hit the long step, it's a live situation. So we're sparring to try and finish the long step pass against various degrees of resistance until the point where you're basically just full on target sparring guard player versus top player, and you can try and hit your long step against a fully resisting opponent, right? So there needs to be like a progression, I think, when we're incorporating brand new moves and new movements. I think it'd be very difficult to just do CLA for the long step pass without CLA being the constraint-led approach, or what many people know as ECO. I think it would be difficult to just gamify the long step pass and have somebody mechanically use it effectively without being shown it through explicit instruction or without doing the solo movements. And hey, maybe there's people that disagree with me, but as Greg says, there is no right or wrong. It's just effective or ineffective. And so if something is effective, for example, if I'm showing students the solo movements, and I've noticed that the solo movements directly impact their success with this particular pass and my own, and the Mendez brothers and Tainan Dalpra are all saying that this is what's they're finding as well, man, like how can you say that that's not effective, right? It just is. I don't need a guy in a white lab coat to run a bunch of studies and tell me if it is effective or not, right? Like we're jiu-jitsu guys. I don't need a scientific study done to tell me if something's effective. If we see it work in competition, it's clearly effective. We see a student progress using the solo movement, is clearly effective, right? So I think the solo movement is a great way to study the long step. And and then we can gamify it with our training partner and add various levels of resistance. And that's really helped me and my students. And I really encourage that you guys do that as well. So let's talk about some really important concepts with the long step pass. The first one, this is going to clear up a lot of questions that people have about this pass, because this is a common mistake. And that's you want to fall away from your partner. And so we want to think about like creating a gap where our body can fall into. When we look at the old footage of backstepping and how people use this backstep pass, which sometimes is effective, a lot of people will fall right on their partner. So what this looks like is you're in the split squat, you get your grips, and then you turn your knee in and you do a big backstep. And again, it sounds like that big smacking sound. And now it's like a scramble to try and get chest to chest while your partner's framing. Okay. This is a mistake because you're so close to your partner that there's no real extension of their body. You haven't created what the Mendez bros call a gap. What I want to do before I do a long step pass, contrary to my intuition with the position, is I want to push myself back. And a good landmark to think about is like your head. You're going to start in the split squat, pulling yourself in, and your partner's going to frame. And this is good. We want them to frame, right? They're reacting. Then as we go to do our long step pass, the movement happens by pushing ourselves back and falling into like a crescent shape away from our partner. So we're falling away from our partner. And a landmark to think about is as we're pushing ourselves back, we want our head to go behind our partner's belt. So if you can envision that, your head is far away from your partner's torso. A lot of people mess this pass up because they pull themselves in and then they try and backstep with their head directly over their partner's chest. But when you do that, you never get your head into that nice little pocket on their belly because you haven't created space to fall into. And so if you haven't put your head onto their belly, they can high leg and they can push your face away. And you'll finish often with a backstep with your face up in the air. What you want to do is finish chest and face down, hips up. So if you can imagine it again, we're in the split squat position, grabbing the collar. We're going to be giving our partner that initial pressure that will force them to frame. They're trying to frame and we're pulling ourselves in. Okay. And then when it's time to hit the long step, we're going to push ourselves back and sort of fall off to the side. And what creates that gap is that push backwards, because what they're going to do usually as you push yourself away is they're going to keep their legs locked around your leg in like a reverse de la Hiva or a half guard of some sort. And so that really extends their legs. And then when you fall, as you're falling, we want to think about pulling that collar and creating a really strong whip. So we want to make the gap and we want to create a whip by throwing our foot not in a back step position where it smacks on the ground, but almost like a toe drag, where our toe is pulling in a crescent shape and landing up behind us live on the mat, ready to drive into a tripod, which is, again, like one of the main finishing positions of the long step pass. When you see Tainan and Guy Mendez do the long step pass, it's like all you hear is like you hear like this sound. Like it's almost silent. It's not a smack, which is a back step. Your toe is dragging along the mat and drawing like a letter C, and you're facing hips down. When the back step happens, a lot of time your chest faces up, your head is up, and your hips face up. And so you're kind of out of position to secure the pass, which is frustrating because you'll get like 80% of the way to the pass, 90% of the way to the pass, and then your partner recovers on you, you get nothing for it. But with the long step, it's crazy how making the gap really allows you to fall into position. And when I say that, more specifically, your head is falling into position, and that's allowing you to secure the pass. And so you want to create the gap, and you want to create the whipping action by pulling, and then your foot whipping out, but you're kind of like descending into the position. We're not suddenly smacking into the position. We want to smoothly descend into it. And you should watch Tainan do it and Guy Mendez do it, because they're super smooth when they're drilling it. And that's what I try and mimic. Okay, let's talk about some common mistakes with the long step pass. Are you guys still thinking about air fried steak? I need one right now. I need a steak. So a huge common mistake that pretty much everyone does when they first try to do the movement is they all make this mistake. They turn their knee in. So as they're falling to the outside, the knee that they're falling onto, they turn it in, and this usually facilitates the back step, leading to that foot smacking onto the ground. It makes sense, right? We want to fall to the side, so why wouldn't I want to switch my hip and put my hip on the floor? If I do it that way, I'm not gonna. First of all, I'm gonna be way too close to my partner. And we talked about landing too close to our partner. We don't have that nice gap that we want to fall into. I want to fall away from my partner. I want to actually exaggerate the movement, the crescent shape movement that I'm falling in. I want to fall away farther from my partner than you would imagine. Then as I'm falling, I'm going to pull the collar, and that's going to whip my feet out, and I'm going to pull my head into the chest. So turning the knee in does not give you a good wide base of support, and it does not afford you to fall away from your partner and give you that gap that we're looking for. What we want to do is actually turn our knee out. I think about turning my elbow out, my knee out, and my toes out, and falling far away from my partner. Because I have a grip on the collar, I'm not going to like lose connection to my partner. So as I fall wide, I whip my feet out. And what you'll find a lot of the time is it'll be very difficult for your partner to even keep your leg controlled, because you're moving so far away that when the leg comes out, their legs will have to become so extended to control you. And so often they will lose control of your leg, and you can finish the pass, or they'll be holding on to your ankle for dear life with their legs. And then you can often convert this into half guard chest to chest passing. So that's one of the most common follow-ups, is just converting this to like a knee cut position with an underhook. So we want to make sure that we're turning our knee out, not turning our knee in and falling to our butt. We still want to fall to our butt, but we want to land on our knee first, then our butt. And again, it's like a smooth, like it's a smooth sound. You're ascending in a crescent shape. You're not smacking suddenly onto the floor. It should be smooth and soft landing, not sudden and abrasive. And not creating the space, not creating the gap is probably the biggest mistake that I see when people are first learning this. And so what we have to do is push ourselves backwards to make the space, and then fall away from our partner. Another big mistake is people's elbow position. So the collar grip, we're grabbing the collar grip. Actually, Gordon put out an instructional as well on gi passing, which I think is funny because he doesn't compete in the gi. I would love to see it. But basically a big part of the instructional that's free is the long step pass. And he basically shows it mechanically the same as the Mendez brothers do. And the elbow position is very important. We want our elbow above our partner's shoulder. So if you can imagine, a lot of people feel awkward when they land because they're tucking their elbow in. And so they don't have a wide base of support and they basically just fall over to their side. What we want to do is prop our elbow open. So we're landing with an open elbow. And what this allows us to, again, to drive into the tripod position where our head is down on our partner's stomach and our hips are up. And we're basically just like driving into side control or north-south, or top spinning. Sometimes our partner will turn and we can top spin and go to the back. And so landing with a closed elbow is another huge mistake. So closing your knee and your elbow, big mistakes. We want to open our knee wide, open our elbow wide, and fall incredibly wide away from our partner. Let's again just reiterate the foot position. So when we're doing our long step, we do not want our foot to smack the mat. We want our foot to glide along the mat, like our toe is drawing a C or a crescent along the mat. And this makes a huge difference. This is like a huge, again, another mechanical clue that I find really helps beginners, and it really helped myself when it came to figuring out how to use the long step pass. Okay, common finishing methods. So we talked about tripoding, going into a side control, going into a north-south position. If our partner's framing on us, there's going to be opportunities to punch underhooks and go into half guard passing, knee cuts. If our partner turns and is turtling, we can sometimes top spin around the back. If they manage to keep turning, we can convert this into folder passes. Sometimes if they bring their top knee inside, we can staple it down. It's going to depend on the grips that you use and the types of passes that you like to the types of passes that you like to finish. For me, I love passing through the half guard. So a lot of the time I'm just looking to get chest to chest half guard, but quite often I'll just pull my leg out and I'll just tripod right into side control. And then of course, if our partner is building up to an elbow, which a good opponent will do a lot of the time because they realize they just need to bail out. So they'll try and build up to their elbow and wrestle up or just get back to like a neutral position. When this happens, if you stand up, you can just deadlift the collar and hoist your partner off the ground. Very, very strong grip. And I should mention that when you use this deadlift movement, again, you would never deadlift with like your arms. You're going to deadlift with that hip hinge movement and push your hips forward. So you should be using your hips when you go and hoist your partner off the ground. And then from there, the arm is extended. We have arm bars. Otherwise, we have back exposure, or we could just finish the pass if they just settle into side control. And yeah, you will find that when you use the long step, you're going to find it everywhere. Like you'll be able to tack it on to all different types of guard passing attempts. My favorite one by far is going to be the Toreando or the leg drag. Anything that throws our partner's legs to the side, and then as they're recovering, you fall away from them, not onto them, fall away from them and connect to the long step pass. And man, super effective. It really has changed like my passing game in the gi, the long step pass. And if it's not a pass that you do and you love gi, I recommend, by the way, long stepping in no gi, I don't really find it a thing. I don't think it's effective, really. There are certain situations like when you're passing through north-south where you will use a long step movement effectively, but long step in this context where you're like grabbing the head and long stepping, it really doesn't work. You don't have any inside position on the upper body, and so your partner can kind of always just like push you away or kip you off of them. But if you're a gi player and you don't use the long step, I think it's like a crucial guard pass to have. And so I really encourage you, if it's not part of your game, to really look into this instructional and check it out, because it can totally influence your game in an awesome way. And if you use the long step pass, but you're having those same issues that we discussed, like maybe every time you hit your long step, your partner recovers on you and they're pushing you away, I guarantee it has to do with your head being too high or you landing, you basically falling on top of your opponent rather than away from your opponent, not creating the gap, right? Not landing wide enough, not pulling yourself in, and not drawing the circle with your toes. So these are all things that can really, basically the most common mistakes that I see for the long step pass. Easily one of my favorite passes in the gi. And, you know, you do it enough times, you do the solo drill enough times, you're going to become comfortable enough to hit it against somebody who's fully resisting, or, you know, even at the higher levels in competition. So that's my talk on the long step pass and stakes. Still want another steak. I'm going to cook one up tonight. All right. Now, before we get out of here, I just want to talk about a competition that I did on the weekend. I did the Copa Katana, which was in Vancouver. Copa Katana was an event that was around years ago, and recently it kind of resurfaced. And it's a Copa Katana, but it was also kind of like a Fight to Win Canada. We're trying to get Fight to Win to have more of a presence up here in Canada. And so one of my buddies has sort of taken on that role of trying to make it more popular. And so there was already a Fight to Win Vancouver, but now that this was like kind of sold as a Fight to Win as well. Anyways, it's basically just a local tournament. We did a quintet on guard Jiu Jitsu versus 10th Planet, and it was a draw, unfortunately. It was me and my buddy Ronaldo, who's like 200 or 205 pounds, pretty thick, flexible guy. He's good grappler. We've both gotten to day 2 at ADCC trials before. Like, he's pretty decent. And there were 6 athletes per side, no submissions, unfortunately. So it ended in a draw, but like, it was me and him last. And I'm doing 2 brackets. I'm doing the quintet bracket and I'm doing the 185 bracket. And near the end, my coach Rob, like, we're there, and they said, like, if there's a weight disadvantage, you will the smaller athlete, me, I'll have the choice between a 4-minute match or a 6-minute match. And I've already had one match that I won I had to buy the first round for the 185 bracket. Then I defeated one of my friends, Christian Tremaine, an MMA fighter. I beat him on points. And then I knew I would have at least 2 matches left to win the tournament after this quintet thing. And so Rob is there. He's like, do 4 minutes. They asked me, like, in front of everyone, do you want to do 6 minutes or 4 minutes? And like, there's no submissions yet. And I'm just like, fuck it, 6 minutes. I'm just, it's so stupid. And he's just like, God damn it. Like, you wanted me to do 4 minutes because obviously you wanted me to save energy for the 185 bracket, which is totally reasonable and totally logical. But I mean, like, how am I going to submit, a good black belt in 4 minutes? It's just not going to happen. Right. And I didn't end up submitting him anyways, but I wanted to give it my best, right? And Ronaldo, he didn't have the other bracket. He only had me as a match. So he's going as hard as he can. And like, man, I did get tired. I'm not going to lie. It was with his size, and it's a sub only rule set. He had me in some leg entanglements. He probably would have won the match if it was ref's decision, if I'm being totally honest. There's actually a moment where he was working like a body lock, and I was breaking the body lock and turning. And as he was like chasing me, he tried to jump on my back, and we kind of went out of bounds. And just as he was jumping around the corner, I managed to punch an underhook, and I basically like threw him up in the air like a big dynamic looking like Uchimata, because he was jumping on my back, but he couldn't get past my arm. And so as I lifted my arm up in the air, he just went over, and we both just like flew onto the concrete. I actually fell on him. Like, I was totally fine. He said he was fine too, but he had a pretty hard landing. I actually have footage of it. I might post it or something, but it was pretty cool. And anyways, it was just a draw, like 6 minutes against a hard, tough black belt. It's difficult. And I've fought Ronaldo many times. We've fought each other before, and he's a good friend of mine, actually. I actually went to his school's grand opening a couple weeks ago, and we rolled or whatever. And I didn't think I'd be paired up with him, but we did. And we were the last fighters. So I'm like, fuck it. Let's go 6 minutes. I want to see if I can submit you, but in the end I couldn't get the job done. And then, so my second match in the 185 bracket, I fought Daniel Riches again. I subbed him by armbar. He actually had me in an ankle lock that kind of had me sweating. As if you've been listening to the show, one of my ankles is really badly fucked up from a super fight that I had over a month ago against Charlie Gilpin. And luckily Daniel didn't have that ankle. He jumped on my other ankle. So I came up on top, and he was trying to finish it. And I'm lucky that his grip was not super threatening. I was able to crowd his head and basically force him into a leg drag. And from there it was all just top pressures, chest to chest the whole time. I had him in mount, I think. And I managed to, somehow I caught a Choi bar. I'm not exactly sure how, I don't know if it was a Choi bar. I hit an arm bar on him from somewhere. And I managed to finish him by arm bar. And that was a fun match. And then I was in the finals against Lucas Wilhan again. And unfortunately I lost by 2 points. Lucas, I would say me, Lucas, and Harrison Woods are considered probably like the best 170 to 185 pound grapplers in Vancouver. I weighed in at 175. I'm like not 185. Lucas is like, he's pretty slim. He can easily make 170 as well. He's like pretty skinny, 6'2" or 6'1" or something. He's pretty tall. But yeah, we had another battle, and he actually got 2 points because he put on a calf slicer on me, went out of bounds, and it was super slick setup. Unfortunately, I was unable to prevent him from entering my legs, and he hit a slicer, and it was on my bad knee. And I'm not gonna lie, it was on. And a lot of people shit on calf slicers, myself included, but it was well applied. And because we went out of bounds, they gave him 2 points, so we restarted, and then I couldn't pass his guard. And I was putting pressure on him. I was preventing him from doing any other entanglements the rest of the match. I was getting closer and closer to passing the knee shield and getting chest to chest, but he did such a good job managing his guard. And obviously, if you know my history with him, like, I hate losing, and obviously I want to beat him so bad because we test each other so well. But nothing but respect for Lucas. There's really no doubt in my mind who won that match. It was him. And yeah, I mean, I messaged him instantly after the tournament, giving him my congratulations, and said, man, we got to train. Like, if I can't beat this guy, I got to fucking train with him, because you know, that's really, especially in like a local scene where it's not like, you know, it's not Costa Mesa, it's not New York, it's not Austin, Texas. Like, if we got to keep our relationships with each other open so that we can test each other and train with each other, so that when we go to these bigger shows, we go to trials or Jiu Jitsu Con or Masters Worlds or whatever, like, we've had the best training we can possibly get. And so my hat goes off to Lucas. It was a fun bracket. It was a fun event. Maybe went a bit too late, and there were some production issues for sure, but any local jiu-jitsu I support. And you know, just like any new tournament, they're going to be working out kinks. And so they're kind of building the plane in flight, as it were, or they're, you know, ecoing it, as I like to say. You know, it's not always going to be smooth, especially on your first or second show. So thank you to Copa Katana for putting on that event. Not sure what I'm going to do next for competition. Taking a little bit of time to just train and just recover from, again, my injuries. And man, I'll be air frying some steaks later for sure. Guys, that's all I got for you today. Please like, share, subscribe, leave reviews wherever you can, leave comments where you can. Check out my online academy if you like the way that I teach stuff. Check out my On Guard Academy YouTube channel if you want some free instruction every week. I release a technique. And yeah, if you really like it, I would love if you guys like, share, and subscribe from there. Leave comments. And other than that, I'm going to see you guys next week. All right. And remember, the Everyday Jiu-Jitsu podcast is everything you need to know about Jiu-Jitsu. Air fry some steaks. Peace out, boys. See ya.